You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
What is happening out there, guys? Today I'm chatting with Janine Shepherd. She's a former elite athlete, aerobatics pilot, author, speaker, resilience coach whose TED Talks has over 1.6 million views and is a favorite on TED.com. Janine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners something interesting about yourself and also where you're calling in from.
I am calling in from Wyoming, and just one thing interesting. Well, okay. I have experienced an NDE. Most people find that pretty interesting.
You have experienced what exactly?
An NDE, near-death experience. Although
Wow.
I like to say it's actually a death experience rather than a near-death, because I did completely leave my body. So,
Wow. Can you elaborate on that?
well, a lot of people ask me about that, what that experience was like. And I say, well, I came back to my body to teach people about how to live, not about what's on the other side. So I don't really talk a lot about it because people think it's a little weird.
It's okay.
But
Sure.
so I experienced a very serious accident, and I spent 6 months in a spinal ward. And for the first 10 days, I was in and out of my body. I went to another place and made a decision to come back to my body. So I guess you could say that's probably something interesting.
Very interesting. Let's tell our listeners how that turned into JanineShepherd.com.
Well, before that, I was an athlete. I'd been an athlete my entire life, and I was actually, started in track and field and triathlons and marathons, and I ended up in cross-country skiing, which most people think is pretty unusual for an Australian. But I had been invited to train with the Canadian team in the lead-up for the 88 Winter Olympics in Calgary, and he really wanted to put Australia on the map. The Canadian coach, Marty Hall, had said to me, Janine, you can do something that no Australian's ever done before. And that was my goal, to really go out there and show the world that this little Aussie could ski. And I was on a bike ride with my teammates, riding from Sydney to the Blue Mountains, west of Sydney. And about 5.5 hours into the ride, I was run over by a truck, a speeding truck. And that was the moment that changed my life forever and the course of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's been how many years since then?
Well, I had the accident in 86. So, in Australia, my story is very well known. It's, I've written 6 books. It was made into a telly movie. It's been, there's a lot more than just the accident, of course. But I guess something that probably makes it quite interesting is when I did come back to my body. I spent 6 months in a spinal ward and came out in a wheelchair and a plaster cast. Was told that I'd never be able to, do the things I did before. I'd never be able to walk. First, my parents were told I wouldn't live, never be able to have children, and it was sitting outside in my wheelchair in a plaster cast. An airplane flew over, and I thought, well, if I can't walk, then maybe I can fly. And again, a seminal moment in my life. I was lifted into an airplane, and, I had no feeling from the waist down. I'm actually allergic, but I am walking. Now I've learned to walk. And I went on to become a pilot, not just a pilot. I went on to become a commercial pilot, a flying instructor, an aerobatics flying instructor. I'm teaching people how to fly airplanes upside down.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Are you doing that in Wyoming?
I know I am still flying, but I'm not teaching anymore because my life has taken me in so many other directions.
Sure.
Writing and traveling and speaking. I've been on the speaking circuit for a long time now.
Yeah.
And sharing my story. So it's just been a really interesting journey, and one that I hadn't planned. That's for sure.
Well, it sounds extremely inspiring. I was going to ask a question that I generally do, but I think it's already kind of been answered as far as given a time where we felt you kind of hit a crazy, hurdle in life and in business. But I think that we've established that has happened, of course, and now you're sharing. We say your mess becomes the message, and that has definitely been a great message. That it seems. Who do you generally speak in front of?
Well, mostly, it's corporate audiences. And, for some of your listeners, they might know my story from my TED Talk. That was on TED.com, the talk of the day, and that's had over, almost 2 million views.
Wow.
And that's really opened up some doors, some crazy, extraordinary doors for me. But so most of it's corporate, although I'm about to take off. I'm leaving for Australia in a few days, and then I'm actually going over to Istanbul to speak at a United Nations women's event for gender equality for women in sport, which I'm really looking forward to. So, mostly corporate, but as I said, the United Nations women's event, I speak at schools, anywhere where I think people can be helped by my message.
Tell me, so you kind of jumped in, or you felt like you created the opportunity in the entrepreneurship world now that you're obviously been in it for so long, or has it just kind of evolved for you? You were kind of put into this position to share your story, to inspire others, which I think is awesome. And I'm glad that and I know that you're doing the same now today with others listening. But how did that work out for you? Did you realize that all of a sudden, wow, I guess I'm a business owner?
It's funny because when I wrote my first book, I didn't know what would happen. And then in Australia, it became a bestseller. And 60 Minutes did a story. There was a movie and, sort of like I felt in a way that, I'd never really planned it. And then I feel that when you're doing the right work, the work that you're meant to do, what I call your sacred contract in this body, the universe conspires to, make sure everything unfolds in the right way. And I realized that, it took me a long time to realize why I made the choice to come back to my body to help other people. And of course, I'll just back up a little. My TED Talk is called A Broken Body Isn't a Broken Person. But the actual original title was You're Not Your Body. And I think that's one of the most important lessons that I learned from my experience, because as an athlete, an elite athlete, I defined myself by my body. And, when I lost that, I had to look elsewhere and realize that, my real strength actually had nothing to do with my body. So every time I've got to the point in my life where I've thought, okay, I've had enough now, I'm retiring, I'm not going to be speaking anymore, the universe has sort of thrown something in my way and said, no, you're not, you know why you came here. You're going to keep telling sharing your story. And of course, there's been some, incredibly seminal moments in my life. I ended up, I did have children. I've got 3 amazing children, even though they said I'd never have kids. I then, was a single mum for 10 years. I ended up financially losing my house from the stress of that. And again, I sort of got to the point where I thought, well, what do I do now? Okay, I start again. I do what I've always done. And I sort of packed up and moved to America. And that is probably what I consider my real entrepreneurship journey. That's when that began, having to sort of go, okay, I'm just moving, who does that? And moving overseas, getting a new book deal. And I wrote my 6th book, which was published in America. That was picked up in Hollywood, and it's actually, we're just almost tied in with a screenwriter to write the script for this. We've got 3 really big producers working on my book, Defiant and Life Story. And then creating a course, a resilience course, which I'm about to launch. So it's really been, the entrepreneurship journey for me has been something that was sort of, in a way, not planned.
We're going to dive into our guests' experiences in business and life after this quick message. Life Nation, are you struggling with growing your business and hitting goals? Or are you over the 9-to-5 grind, finally ready to take the dive into entrepreneurship? What are you waiting for? Go to michaelivas.com to set up a free, no obligation coaching call today. That's MIKEOLIVAS.com. I can help you. It may be the best call you've ever made.
Yeah, you kind of got pushed into it. And I think a lot of that has happened with stories similar to yours, where there's been a traumatic process. And it's like, how do I tell the story? And that's, which is great, by the way, because it's almost reverse engineered to how most entrepreneurs think is, their story generally is, how do I make money? How do I make a lifestyle that I want to live? Yours is, I want to tell my story because I have a story to tell that's worth hearing. And I love that, because sometimes you just figure it out because you have that passion behind you. right? And I think that really goes to show with a lot of people that have been in your position that there's not the profit and loss statements and the QuickBooks and all the stuff that comes along with it, and the taxes and the CPAs that get involved. It's like, I got a story to tell and I'll figure out the rest. And I think that definitely happens really well.
I think so. And I think, when you know what you're meant to be doing in life and you're on that right path, things, sort of doors tend to open. I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell, Hero's Journey. And, my TED Talk is actually based around that as well. So, when you're doing what you're meant to do, things, I really believe that the universe conspires to make it happen. And I think one of the problems that a lot of people have in the world is that they're trying to live someone else's life. They're saying, well, they're doing it that way, so I'm going to do it just like that. When instead of sort of saying, well, what am I here to do? What brings me, what brings me joy? What really, makes me feel alive. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to run my own race. And I think that's the best advice for anyone who, wants or doesn't want to be an entrepreneur, or just life in general. Just run your own race.
Why resiliency? Why do you speak about resiliency?
Well, because I think I'm the poster girl for resilience.
Oh, absolutely.
So as a walking paraplegic, a pilot, for all the things I've been through in life, and if anyone wants a snapshot, they can go and listen to my TED Talk.
Yeah, please.
I've learned a lot. My background before my accident, I have a sports science degree, and all of my focus was on, how to get the optimum function, out of my body, because I was going to the Olympics. How do I really, fine tune this machine? And when I lost that, I really had to look elsewhere and question that mindset. Okay, so if my strength, I don't have my body's broken. Where is my strength? And I really had to look elsewhere. And, I discovered some pretty interesting things. And I've learned a lot about resilience. And when people tell me I'm resilient, oh yeah, no, you've done that because you're resilient. And I go, yeah, I'm resilient, not despite my accident, because of my accident.
Sure.
So it's the challenges that I've been through that have created this resilience. And, I went back and I sort of deconstructed my whole journey. My background in sports science, I'm a qualified, teacher, positive psychology coach, a counselor. I've put all of that together and distilled this wisdom from science, from ancient wisdom, from my own journey. And I've come up with this program that I think is a breakthrough program, teaching what no one else has actually taught yet, the steps I use to just create this extraordinary life. I'm really excited about it. It's based on 5 precepts, which is a way of seeing life. And I use a lot of, flying analogies as well and metaphors for that. Because I've learned a lot from flying, as a pilot. And I say that, when I was flying and teaching people to fly, I would teach them how to navigate in an aircraft. Well, in this course, I'm going to teach them how to navigate through their obstacles in the same way that I did. And it's based on 12 pillars that go from, acceptance, which is the first step, to sort of forgiveness and optimism and compassion, to value, strengths, hope and meaning, humor, mindfulness, and gratitude and connection. So there's sort of 12 pillars that are based on spiritual principles as well as science. And I think it's, I'm really excited to sort of launch that into the world in the next few weeks.
How have you used your successes as an engine to build the life that you want to live?
I think the most important thing is that I've really been able to focus on the process. I don't get too caught up with the goal, because I know what it's like to have a goal and have it ripped away from you. I was going to the Olympics and I ended up paralyzed in a spinal ward. So life doesn't always, I think, we're fed this great lie, which is we're meant to be happy. We're meant to be happy. So we live on social media, we look at everyone else and we think, and if we're not happy, there's something wrong with us. And I say, look, that's a lie. We're not meant to be happy. when we're happy, that's great. But sometimes life is sad. Life is not meant to be just, one great big, journey of happiness. It's meant to be about meaning. It's meant to be about learning and growth. And so if we can make meaning, our goal, I mean, research says that, that there's greater well-being when we're actually creating meaning in our life. And to me, one of the first ways we do that is being able to give back to someone else, being able to help others. And science, and there's been so much research on that, that we experience greater well-being when we give to others.
Before I let you go here on our final question, where can people find you?
They can find me, they can find me on Facebook. They can find me on Instagram, Janine_Shepherd. They can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Awesome. You could also go into the TED Talks. You'll find all of those links as well to those videos and all the information that we're dropping here in the show notes as well. Janine, all of all your successes and failures in business and in life, what's the one piece of parting advice that you'd give to entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs listening today?
Well, firstly, I'd say it's focus on the process. What the value, what really brings you alive. Don't really focus on the goals. We're very goal driven. I'm very values driven. So make sure there's some great sites you can go to. The VIA site, for example, you can look at your strengths, align them with your values, align your goals with your values. But if there's one mindset, and this is what I teach on stage too, I had a mindset that I had as an athlete, which was to love the hills. And the hills are the challenges we face in life. And, I say turn towards the challenges in life, turn towards the things that you fear. It's never as bad as you think.
Well, Janine,
embrace the hills.
Yeah, you're right. Embrace the hills, or the hills. They're definitely going to come. And they sometimes get bigger, but eventually they'll get smaller. And you'll get on top of those as well if you just stick with it. I really appreciate some of the knowledge that you're giving everybody here today. Make sure you go check out JanineShepherd.com and find her on social media and follow her. Thanks so much for your time.
And I'll just say one last thing. If they go to my website, there's a couple of free downloads there. There's a resilience checklist, and also a reframing tool that I've created called the question method to build a better you. So they can go on and they can download those for free. And I hope it helps them to build an unshakable core.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks so much. Really grateful for your time. Thanks, Mike.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Libas, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do, so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.